Story 1, The Demon in the Limestone Caves. You don't forget the sound of wind inside a cave. It doesn't whistle, it screams. Like something trapped down there wants out. We'd driven up to Eldon Hole that December weekend, me, my old army mate Lee Carver, and my family. Sarah had begged for one last trip before Christmas. The kids loved camping, even in the cold. I told her Eldon Hole was quiet, remote, perfect for a few days away. I didn't tell her the locals called it the Devil's Drop. That first night, the sky was the color of gunmetal. The wind sliced straight through the valley, carrying a faint, high-pitched wail that made my youngest, Molly, cry. I joked it was just foxes. But foxes don't sound like people. We set up camp not far from the fenced-off crater. Lee brought his climbing gear. He was a mountain nut, said he wanted to explore the limestone formations nearby. I'd been a soldier once, but age and family make you soft. I just wanted a fire, hot tea, and no drama. The night dropped fast. By 7, frost had crusted the tents. When I went to check on the kids, they were giggling by the fence. For little silhouettes, torches dancing. "Get back here!" I shouted. "That's dangerous." But before they moved, I heard another voice. A whisper. From the dark pit itself. "Daddy said you can come inside." The words floated up, soft, childish, like it was echoing from deep below. The girls froze. So did I. My torch beam hit nothing but mist and stone. Lee came running with his headlamp. "You heard that too?" I nodded. "Someone's down there." He shook his head. "No one should be. This place is sealed." The wind rose, a hollow, throaty moan through the rocks. We herded the kids back to the tents. I tried to laugh it off, but the sound kept playing in my head. "Daddy said you can come inside." By midnight, everyone was asleep except me and Lee. We sat by the dying fire, the forest creaking with cold. I kept glancing toward the cave fence. The mist had thickened until it looked alive, shifting like slow-moving smoke. Then, a clatter. Metal on stone. Lee grabbed his torch. "Someone's moving down there." Before I could stop him, he clipped his rope to the fence and started lowering himself toward the dark mouth. "Lee!" I hissed. "Don't be stupid." But the light disappeared. Only his rope remained, sliding inch by inch into the void. The radio on my belt crackled. His voice came through, tight with static. "Tom, there's something, wait, Jesus Christ." Then a shriek. A raw, human shriek that turned into a wet, scraping sound, like claws on limestone. I pulled at the rope, shouting his name. Nothing. Then, tugging. Not from his end, but from below, as if something was pulling back. I let go. The rope snapped loose, coiling on the frost. Seconds later, footsteps. Fast. Heavy. Lee burst out of the fog, face pale, blood pouring from 3 deep gashes across his cheek. His eyes were wide with pure animal terror. "It's not human," he screamed. "Tom, it's not bloody human." We ran. Sarah woke to chaos, kids crying, Lee's blood on the tent fabric, me trying to keep the fire alive for light. The storm hit full force, sleet hammering the canvas. I could swear, under the wind, I heard something breathing near the fence. Deep, wet, labored. By dawn, Lee was shaking uncontrollably. The cuts on his face had blackened at the edges, like frostbite, only, spreading. We packed up in silence and left the park before the rangers opened the gates. 2 days later, I went to see him at his flat in Sheffield. He'd boarded the windows. Said he couldn't stand the light. His voice was hoarse, his hands trembling. When I reached out, he jerked back, his nails had grown long, sharp, and yellow, like animal claws. He muttered about the thing in the rock. Said it wasn't a man at all, that he'd seen its face for only a second, white as bone, eyes red like coals, mouth full of teeth that clicked together as it crawled. "It touched me, Tom," he whispered. "It wanted me to come back." I told him to see a doctor. He laughed, a dry, rattling sound. Then he showed me his chest. The veins beneath his skin had turned dark, branching like cracks in marble. I left before nightfall. A week later, the ranger from Eldon Hole called. He'd found something during a safety inspection, bones, dozens of them, deep inside a narrow side chamber. Not human, he said, but arranged in a perfect ring. Goat, deer, fox, all stripped clean, polished by hand. They also found claw marks carved into the stone walls. Not graffiti. Deep gouges, like something had been climbing from the inside. They asked if we'd seen anything unusual. I said no. 3 weeks passed. Sarah tried to pretend nothing happened, but I could see the fear in her eyes every time the wind howled at night. The kids had nightmares. They said the whispering came through the windows, telling them to come inside. Then Lee stopped answering his phone. I drove to his place again. The door was locked from the inside. The smell hit me first, rot, damp earth, and iron. When I forced the door open, the living room was dark. Curtains nailed shut. In the center of the floor lay his climbing rope, coiled neatly. Around it, a circle of small bones. Animal bones, maybe. I followed the pattern with my torch until I reached the sofa. Something had scratched words into the wall above it. He's awake beneath the stone. No sign of Lee. Only blood, black and crusted, smeared across the floorboards leading to the cellar door. The police found nothing. No body. No footprints. But when they lifted one of the loose floorboards, they found nail marks, deep, desperate scratches, as if someone had clawed their way down, not up. It's been 15 years. Every winter, around the same week, I get a postcard. No return address, just 2 words scrawled in ink that looks dark brown, maybe old blood. Still waiting. And every time the wind screams outside my window, I swear I can hear it again, that same whisper from the depths of Eldon Hole. Daddy said you can come inside. Story 2, The Axeman in the Fog. You don't really know darkness until you've camped in the New Forest in October. Fog rolls through those trees like it's alive, thick, wet, whispering against the bark. It muffles everything. Even your own breathing sounds wrong. It was supposed to be a lads' weekend, me, Cal Reed, and Joe Bishop. 3 mates, a few beers, a couple of dirt bikes, and a night under the stars. Cal had just broken up with his girlfriend, and I figured the ride would clear his head. We parked the van near Brockenhurst, deep enough into the woods that the GPS went blind. Mist hung between the trees like ghostly curtains. Joe joked that it looked like a screensaver from hell. We laughed, then the fog swallowed the sound whole. By nightfall, we had a fire going, beers open, music low. The world outside the light felt wrong. Every so often we'd hear branches snap, but when we shone a torch, there was nothing. No birds, no foxes, not even insects. Just the hiss of the fire and the faraway drip of rain through leaves. Around 10, Cal stood up to take a leak. Wandered off into the trees, torch beam bobbing. He was singing some old Oasis tune, until he wasn't. Then silence. A minute later, the beam went still. Then it swung wildly, as if he'd dropped the torch. I heard him shout, not a word, more like a startled grunt. Cal? I called. Nothing. Then, footsteps. Crunching on wet leaves, coming fast. Cal burst back into camp, eyes huge, skin white as milk. There's someone out there, he gasped. Digging. Digging? Joe frowned. You sure it's not? Cal grabbed him by the jacket. I saw him. He's got a bloody axe, Joe. We all froze. Cal's hands were shaking as he pointed back toward the trees. He's wearing a mask, like an animal's face. Fur. Antlers or horns or something. He's digging a hole, and there's blood on the ground. Joe laughed nervously. You winding us up? Then we heard it. A dull, heavy thunk. Metal striking wet earth. Again. And again. Thunk, thunk, thunk. Joe went pale. I grabbed the biggest knife we had, a camping blade barely longer than my hand. Stay here, I said, and started toward the sound. Cal followed despite me telling him not to. The fog was thicker now, so dense I could taste it. The smell hit first, copper, rot, and something else, sweet, like decay baked by rain. Then we saw him. A man, tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a leather mask stitched together with black thread. It looked like a boar's face, tusks curving upward, muzzle caked in dried blood. His jacket was butcher's leather, soaked dark. He was kneeling beside a red tarpaulin. On it, 3 shapes wrapped tight in plastic, glistening. The axe was embedded in the soil next to a half-dug hole. Cal's breath hitched. The man's head snapped toward us. For a moment, no one moved. The fog swirled between us, and I heard the faint creak of leather as he stood up. Then he picked up the axe. Run, I whispered. We bolted. Branches whipped at my face as I sprinted through the trees, mud sucking at my boots. Behind us came the sound, heavy footsteps, and the wet chop of the axe hitting bark as he ran. Cal tripped over a root and went down hard. I spun around to help him up. The axe hit the tree beside his head, sending splinters across his face. Sparks burst where the metal struck stone. We stumbled back toward camp, hearts hammering, lungs burning. Joe had the bike started already, engines whining through the fog. I shoved Cal onto one and climbed onto the other. He's right behind us, I shouted. And he was. The headlights caught him for a split second, mask glinting, axe raised high, his whole body covered in mud and streaks of red. We tore off down the trail. The fog made it like riding blind. Every branch looked like an arm, every shadow a face. Behind us, the sound of an engine roared, a quad bike, coming fast. He's got a bloody quad. Joe screamed over the noise. The chase was chaos. Mud flying, headlights slicing through white walls of mist. The path twisted, narrow and slick. I could see Cal ahead, limping with one leg. He must have been hit. His trousers were soaked dark, blood spraying from his thigh each time he kicked the clutch. The axeman's quad rammed Joe's back wheel, sent him skidding. Joe went down hard. The quad roared past him, turning toward me. I gunned it, skidding around a fallen log. The axe hit the side of my bike, sparks spitting into the air. The sound of metal scraping metal still haunts me. I don't remember how long we rode. Maybe minutes. Maybe hours. Eventually, headlights cut through the fog ahead, 2 jeeps. Rangers. I nearly crashed into them, screaming for help. When they found Joe, he was alive but concussed. Cal had passed out from blood loss, the wound on his thigh was deep enough to show bone. They airlifted him out that night. The rangers searched the woods. They found the tarpaulin. Inside were 3 teenage boys, all missing their heads. The boar mask lay in the mud nearby, still wet. No footprints. No bike tracks. No man. Cal survived. Barely. They had to amputate his leg. Infection, they said. He doesn't talk about that night anymore. Last I heard, he moved to Scotland, somewhere near Inverness. Said he can't stand the sound of rain on trees, it reminds him of the digging. The police called it a probable poaching incident gone wrong. Right. Because poachers bury headless kids wrapped in tarp. They never found the man. Not one trace. But sometimes, when the fog rolls thick across the fields outside my flat, I swear I can hear it again, that slow, rhythmic thunk of the axe, and the sound of a motor idling just beyond the mist. And once, late last winter, I woke up to find mud footprints on my doorstep. Only one set. Barefoot. Enormous. Next to them, drawn in blood, were 3 words. Still digging, Nate. Story 3, The Graves with Faces. There are places in England where the forest feels older than it should. Like the earth remembers things it shouldn't. The Forest of Dean is one of them. We went there for a weekend in early autumn, me, Rhys Morgan, Owen Blake, and Freya Kane. for friends, all in our mid-20s, chasing some off-grid detox after too many months of city noise. We packed tents, cameras, enough cider to forget how cold the nights get, and set off. Reese was the outdoorsy one, the kind who could start a fire with wet wood and brag about it. I just liked the quiet. I didn't know that quiet could feel like being watched. The first day was perfect. Golden light through the canopy, the smell of pine and wet earth. We found a clearing near an old footpath, pitched our tents, and watched the fog roll in as the sun sank behind the trees. By night, the fog thickened until we couldn't see 5 feet beyond the fire. It was that heavy kind, the kind that glows when you shine a torch into it, white and impenetrable. We played cards, talked rubbish, and listened to the forest breathe. Around midnight, Reese said he'd go grab more wood. He took the lantern and vanished into the mist. 5 minutes passed. 10. Then he shouted for us. His voice sounded wrong, thin, shaky. "Guys, you need to see this." We followed the glow of his lantern through the fog. When we reached him, he was standing in a clearing we hadn't noticed before, a patch of bare earth, soft and freshly dug. 7 mounds. Each roughly the size of a grave. Above every mound stood a tree. And carved deep into the trunk of each tree was a face. Not carved like art. Carved like someone had hacked them in with a blade, gouging eye sockets and screaming mouths. The faces were rough, crooked, but horribly human. Eyes open, mouths wide as if frozen mid-scream. Freya gasped. "What the hell?" Reese knelt to touch the nearest carving. The wood was damp and sticky. He pulled his hand back, frowning. "Is that blood? Dark and fresh." We ran back to camp after that. No one said much. But none of us slept. The fog didn't lift, it pressed against the tent walls, thick and suffocating. Every now and then, I heard faint tapping, like fingers on wood. At around 3 in the morning, Owen whispered, "You guys hear that?" From outside came a sound like soil being turned. Slow, deliberate digging. Then a voice. Low. Whispering through the canvas. "You're next." Freya started crying. Reese grabbed his torch and unzipped the tent. The light hit nothing but fog, a swelling wall of grey. But the sound was still there. Right below us. Like something moving under the ground. At dawn, the digging stopped. Reese swore it was a prank, said some local must have done the carvings to scare campers. But his hands wouldn't stop shaking. We decided to leave. Only problem, Owen's car wouldn't start. Battery dead. No signal on any phone. While we argued, Freya screamed. She was staring at the tree line, at the 7 trees in the distance. They changed. The faces on them weren't the same. One had a beard now. Another had freckles. They looked like us. We packed in under 10 minutes, throwing everything into the boot. Reese insisted on going back to check the graves one last time, to prove it was some kind of hoax. I told him to leave it. He didn't listen. He walked into the fog with the shovel we used for the campfire pit. I watched the light of his torch flicker through the trees until it vanished. Then came the scream. I'll never forget that sound. It wasn't just pain, it was terror, pure and animal. We ran toward it, shouting his name. When we found the spot, the earth was torn open. The mounds were half collapsed, black liquid oozing out like tar. Reese was gone. Only his shovel remained, half buried in the mud. And beside it, something half dug from the soil. A mask. Wooden. Wet. Carved with Reese's face, eyes wide, mouth open in a silent scream. We didn't go back for the tents. We just ran. The fog seemed to close in tighter the faster we moved. I swear I could hear footsteps behind us, slow, dragging, following. By the time we reached the road, Freya was sobbing, Owen vomiting by the ditch. We flagged down a passing truck. The driver refused to go near the clearing, said locals called that part the Whispering Acre. Said no one camps there twice. When the police searched, they found nothing. No graves. No carvings. No mask. Just our abandoned gear and tire marks leading into the trees. They said Reese must have fallen into a sinkhole or wandered off disoriented in the fog. They never found a body. It's been 5 years. I live back in Bristol now, in a flat above a bar. I don't go camping anymore. But every year, on the anniversary, something happens. The first year, I found a small wooden mask on my doorstep, blank, unfinished. The second year, there was another, carved slightly deeper, with a hint of eyes. By the third, it looked exactly like Owen. He died in a car crash that winter. Freya stopped answering my calls after that. Moved abroad, I think. Last week, I got a parcel. No return address. Inside was a mask carved from dark, damp wood. The eyes were empty sockets. The mouth was open. And the face was mine. Sometimes, when I can't sleep, I turn it over in my hands and swear I can hear it breathing. And on foggy nights, when the wind comes from the west, I hear the faintest whisper through the trees outside my window, the same words that crawled through the tent that night. You're next. Story 4, The Gun Camp Under the Moon. You ever see the moon so bright it feels like daylight, but colder, emptier? That's how it was the night Declan Walsh died. We'd been friends since school. Used to get in trouble together, fighting, drinking, stupid stuff. I joined the army, December didn't. By 2003, he was divorced, half drunk most days, trying to get clean. He called me one night, let's go camping. No phones. No bullshit. Just me, you, and the hills. I thought he needed a detox. What he needed was an exorcism. The Brecon Beacons can make you feel like you're the last man on earth. Miles of rolling moorland, stone ridges, wind that never stops. We hiked all day and pitched camp near a shallow ravine, out of the wind, we thought. By the time we lit the stove, the moon had risen, fat and silver. December poured whiskey from a flask, grinning. See? Just like old times. But I'd noticed something strange earlier, a torn sign half buried in the grass. Faded words, still legible in torchlight. MOD training zone, keep out. I joked we'd end up on some firing range. December just laughed and took another swig. Around midnight, we saw the other tent. It wasn't there before. Down the slope, maybe 100 yards away, lit faintly from within, a dull orange glow like a lantern behind canvas. December squinted. Did we pass another group? No, I said. We are miles from the path. He grinned. Let's say hello. I told him to leave it, but he was already halfway down, stumbling through the grass, bottle in hand. I followed, swearing under my breath. The tent was massive, army issue, dark green, the kind you see at field bases. Around it, 20 or so crates stacked in neat rows. Each one stenciled with faded yellow letters. 5.56mm NATO, 400 rounds. December let out a low whistle. Bloody hell, someone's stockpiling. Then he pulled back the tent flap. Inside, it looked like a war museum had exploded. Racks of assault rifles, machine guns, ammunition belts, grenades, all laid out on metal tables. In the corner, a radio crackled faintly with static. No one there. Just the weapons, and the smell. Oil, sweat, and something metallic, like blood. December picked up one of the rifles, checking the chamber like he remembered how. These are real, Gaz, live. Put it down, I hissed. We are leaving. Now. Then we heard boots crunching outside. We killed our torches and ducked behind a table. Through a slit in the canvas, I saw movement, 3 figures approaching. Military gear, night vision goggles glowing green. But they weren't soldiers. Their uniforms were mismatched, unmarked. One of them dragged a tarp behind him. It was leaking dark fluid into the grass. December whispered, "What the hell?" The nearest man turned his head. His goggles gleamed like insect eyes. Hey, he barked. Then came the sound I'll never forget, the click of the safety release, followed by automatic fire. The tent ripped open as bullets tore through. Metal rang, crate splintered, the smell of gunpowder filled the air. I dove behind a table, screaming for December. He returned fire with the rifle he'd grabbed, blind shots through the smoke. The recoil nearly threw him over. One of the gunmen dropped, the others shouted, closing in. We crashed through the back of the tent, rolling into the ravine. Bullets sparked off the rocks above. I grabbed December and hauled him downhill toward the stream. The moonlight lit everything silver, the water, the grass, the blood spreading down Deck's jacket. He'd been hit 3 times in the chest. Keep going, he gasped. I dragged him across the freezing stream, slipping on slick stones. Bullets hissed into the water, snapping past my ears. Somewhere behind us, the gunfire stopped. Then, silence. I laid him against a boulder. His breath came in rattling bursts. Don't you dare die on me, I said. He smiled weakly. Guess we found the adventure you wanted. He coughed blood onto my hands. The moonlight made it look black. Then he went still. I ran until my legs gave out. Found a road at dawn and flagged down a farmer. By the time the police came back to the site, the tent was gone. No crates. No guns. Just churned up mud and the prints of heavy boots leading into nothing. They found Deck's body half a mile away, stripped, skinned, hung from a tree like a butchered deer. I told them everything. They told me I was lying. A month later, the case was closed. Accidental death due to exposure. Right. Because people just expose themselves into being flayed alive. I went back once, a year later. Couldn't sleep. Needed to see for myself. The ravine looked the same, quiet, windswept. But when I reached the spot where the camp had been, I found something buried shallow in the dirt. A bullet casing. 5.56 millimeters, polished clean. Next to it, a dog tag. Not Deck's. The name was scratched out. On the back, someone had etched 2 words with a knife. Still watching. They put out a warrant for me a few months later. Said a witness saw me fleeing the scene. They think I killed him. I moved around after that. Changed numbers. Never stayed long anywhere near military bases. Sometimes, I wake up to the sound of gunfire echoing in my dreams, short, precise bursts. And once, when the moon was full, I swear I saw a light on the ridge. A campfire, maybe. Or a signal. And just for a second, I could have sworn I heard a radio crackle in the distance, followed by a voice whispering through static, low, distorted, almost familiar. Gaz, fall back. Then nothing but wind. Now, 20 years later, I don't tell this story to anyone. Because people don't believe in ghosts with guns. But sometimes, when the moon hits just right, I think about December sitting by that fire, grinning like an idiot. I think about the flash of muzzle fire against the tent. And I think about the men who were never supposed to exist, training, killing, and hiding their dead in the Welsh hills. And I wonder if they ever stopped. Story 5, The Radio Ghost of the Lake. You ever notice how sound travels differently across water? It stretches, bends. It makes distances lie. That's how the voice reached me, floating over the lake in the middle of the night, calling my name through static. Back then, I was 22, studying environmental science in Inverness. I'd gone camping alone at Loch Mollick to record night sounds for a field project, owls, insects, wind over water. The forecast said clear skies. What I got was a fog that rolled in like milk poured over glass. By 10 p.m., visibility was maybe 20 feet. The whole world shrank to the hiss of the lake and the flicker of my little campfire. That's when the radio crackled. It wasn't my phone, I didn't even own one yet. It was the shortwave set I'd brought to monitor weather bands. I'd left it tuned to a static channel, half for background noise. Then, through the fuzz, I heard it. Lies. Owl, C.A. A man's voice, thin and warped, like it was climbing out of deep water. I froze. "Who is this?" I said, leaning toward the speaker. "Nothing. Just that soft rushing static again." I told myself it was interference. Echo. My own name caught in some atmospheric bounce. But then it said, clearer this time, "Don't look at the lake." You ever try not to look at something? It's impossible. My eyes went straight to it. The fog had thinned just enough for the moon to smear across the surface, pale silver ripples. And right there, maybe 30 yards out, something moved. At first I thought it was driftwood. Then it rose, slow, deliberate. Ahead. Not human, not exactly. It was pale and hairless, with holes where eyes should have been, the water sluicing down its skull like tears. The radio hissed again. "Turn it off." I knocked the set over, panic clawing my throat. The speaker kept spitting bursts of static, but underneath, I could hear something else, breathing. Wet, gurgling breaths. I grabbed my torch and swung it toward the shore. Nothing. Just the fog and my reflection shaking on the surface. Then a voice right behind me whispered, not through the radio this time, but inches from my ear. "You looked." I spun around. No one. But my torch beam caught footprints in the mud. Bare. Leading from the water up toward my tent. Every instinct screamed to leave. But the fog was thick as smoke, the trail to the car park might as well have been another continent. So I zipped myself into the tent and sat there clutching the torch, radio off, heart hammering. Hours passed. Or minutes. Time doesn't behave right when you're scared. Around 3 a.m., the radio came on by itself. Just a low hum at first, then the same voice, calmer now. "You shouldn't have come alone, Alice." "How do you know my name?" I shouted. Silence. Then, almost kindly, she told me. "Who?" "The one beneath." I don't remember falling asleep, maybe I passed out from exhaustion. When I woke, the fog was gone and dawn light turned the lake into glass. For a second, I thought I dreamed it. Then I saw the footprints again, dozens now, circling my camp, pressed deep into the damp earth. And the radio's battery light was glowing, though I'd pulled them out the night before. I packed up and drove straight to Evermore. When I told the ranger, he just looked tired. "You camped at Moloch last night?" "Yeah." He sighed. "We tell folk not to after dark. Too close to the training range, and," he hesitated. "Other stories." "What stories?" He just said, "Leave it alone," and went back to his paperwork. I did. For years. But sometimes, when I can't sleep, I tune old shortwave bands on my bedside radio. Most nights it's just static. Then, one December evening in 2012, it came through again, same tone, same distortion. "Lice, can you hear me?" I froze, tears running before I knew why. "What do you want?" "She's still here," the voice said. "She waits for the ones who listen." And behind it, faint but real, came that wet, rattling breath I'd heard by the lake. I threw the radio into the bin that night. Next morning, it was back on the table. Dry. Plugged in. Tuned to channel 7. 43 megahertz. Scrawled on the dial in marker were 3 words I hadn't written. "Don't look again." People say it's all in my head. That isolation does strange things. Maybe they're right. But every year, the night before Christmas, my house fills with fog. Just a faint mist at first, creeping under doors. And around 3 a.m., no matter what I unplug, no matter how many radios I throw out, I hear the static rise. Then the same breathless whisper, closer each time. "You shouldn't have looked, Alice." Sometimes I think about driving back to Loch Moloch, just to see if anything's changed, to prove I'm not crazy. But then the mist rolls thicker over the hills, and I remember that soft voice telling me not to look. And I realize I already am. Story 6, Silent Campers in the Snow. Snow has a sound to it, not the crunch, but the silence that comes after. It's like the whole world holds its breath. That's what I remember most from that trip, the silence that didn't belong. I'd gone to the Cairngorms for a winter survival weekend with two mates from university, Mark and Ellie. We were all training for an expedition in Norway, and thought a few nights camping in Scotland's coldest valley would toughen us up. We parked near Loch Avon, shouldered our packs, and hiked into the white world. Snow fell sideways, sharp as glass. The wind howled between the cliffs, and the air tasted like ice and rust. By dusk, we'd pitched the tent beside a half-frozen stream. Ellie lit the stove, Mark started on whiskey, insisting it would keep spirits up. We joked about frostbite and hypothermia, about how people died in places like this. None of us noticed the tracks near the tree line, a cluster of boot prints half filled with snow, leading toward the ridge and stopping dead. No return path. Around midnight, the wind died. It was too quiet. Even in deep snow, you should hear the creak of ice, the distant moan of air moving through the glen. But there was nothing, no sound at all. Then, faintly, from outside the tent, footsteps. Soft. Slow. Crunch. Pause. Crunch. Probably a deer, Mark mumbled. But deer don't walk upright. And they don't stop and stand breathing just beyond the tent flap. Ellie whispered, "Daniel, someone's out there." The sound moved around us, circling. Then it stopped by Mark's side. He reached for the zip, I grabbed his arm. "Don't," I said. He ignored me, yanked it open, and stared straight into a white face. For one heartbeat, I saw it too, a human figure in tattered clothes, snow-caked on its lashes, eyes like black marbles, lips frozen blue. It wasn't moving, but the snow kept falling through it. And then it was gone. We didn't sleep. At dawn, we found 4 sets of footprints around the tent, 3 ours, and one leading off into the valley, barefoot. Mark tried to laugh it off. Maybe I was half asleep. Ellie wasn't convinced. That thing, it didn't have pupils. We packed up early, but the GPS refused to lock. Compass spun uselessly. The snow had buried our trail overnight, and every direction looked the same. By afternoon, the sky dimmed to iron gray. That's when we saw the smoke. A few hundred meters ahead, through the storm, stood another campsite, half-collapsed tents, old ones, canvas instead of nylon. We called out. No answer. There were 3 tents, arranged in a circle. Inside the first, a sleeping bag stiff with frost, unzipped, empty. In the second, a blackened cookware, mug still half filled with ice. In the third, a radio, the kind used by mountain rescue, buzzing faintly on a dead channel. And beside it, a notebook frozen open, pages stuck together. The writing was barely legible, but one line stood out in pencil. They don't speak. Don't answer when they call your name. Ellie swore and backed away. Mark picked up the radio. Hello? Anyone there? Static. Then a soft hiss, like a voice trying to form words. Mark. He froze. The voice came again, clearer this time. Mark, it's me. It sounded like me. Exactly like me. Mark looked at me, terrified. What the hell? Before he could finish, the radio shrieked, and a gust of wind slammed through the camp, knocking the tents flat. We ran. Snow blinded us, I could barely see my hands. Somewhere behind, Ellie screamed, sharp, panicked, then cut off mid-breath. I turned and saw her silhouette twisting in the white oat, as if someone was dragging her backward into the storm. Mark shouted her name and bolted after her. I followed their prints until they vanished, just like the ones we'd seen before. And then there was only one set of tracks left. Mine. By dusk, the wind stopped again. That silence returned, heavy and wrong. I stumbled into a hollow where the snow had formed a natural bowl. In the middle stood 3 dark shapes, people. Still. Facing each other. Mark. Ellie. And another man I didn't recognize. all frozen solid, snow fused into their skin, eyes open, mouths parted like they'd died mid-scream. The stranger's features were wrong. His face looked coppered, half-formed, as if molded from ice that never set properly. And when I stared longer, I realized his face was mine. I don't remember running. I just remember the sound, footsteps behind me, always one beat after my own. When I stopped, it stopped. When I turned, nothing. At one point I tripped and